Doug gets into his presentation, if you would indulge me for a moment, I'd like to read a page from a book entitled Placemaking, Developing Town Centers, Main Streets, and Urban Villages, and it's put out by a gentleman by the name of Charles Bull by the Urban Land Institute. So often and many times we come across this term called placemaking and the idea of what it is and what it means. And I believe that the foreword, this first page in here, really helps to identify that. It kind of gives the quickest and most briefest synopsis I've ever seen of the evolution of subdivisions and neighborhoods in the United States, all in one brief page. And it addresses the items of what is a place when we talk of placemaking. You hear people raise that concept when we had our downtown vision center sessions, as both Doug and Marlene and those that were in attendance at those know and heard that very many people talked about, where is the gathering place? Where's our identity and what is downtown? So rather than me continuing to talk about that, I also made a copy of that so that you can follow along. You don't have to pass those down. And like I say, indulge me for just a moment. It shouldn't take more than 2 minutes to read this. Suburbs, as we understand them in the United States, really saw their genesis in the early 1800s. They were places that were deliberately designed to be physically and symbolically separate from the increasingly large, immigrant-filled, polluted, and noisy U.S. cities. The creation of these first suburbs was also driven by transportation. It had to be easy for a businessman, for example, to travel from his suburban home to a city. By the early 20th century, when railroads and trolleys were widespread and reliable, virtually every major U.S. city had its suburbs. It was during this period that several classic new communities emerged, such as Chestnut Hill in the Main Line outside Philadelphia, Scarsdale outside of New York, Chevy Chase outside of Washington, D.C., and the great North Shore suburbs like Lake Forest out of Chicago, and then even Beverly Hills, a master-planned community whose first lots went on the market in 1906. These early prototypical suburbs were not entirely bedroom communities. They were more like villages, clustered around train stations and boasting little main streets with neighborhood-serving shops, a few apartments, a church, a post office, a library, real places. With the rise of the automobile in the 1920s and the 1930s, those early suburbs and dozens of newer ones really reached their heyday. In most instances, they continued to cluster around a train or a trolley stations or village centers. But they started to get bigger because people could now drive their cars to the train station. The post-World War II suburban boom was also transportation-driven, but now it was strictly automobiles and freeways, not rail, that pushed suburban development. Those new communities, like Long Island's Levittown or Los Angeles' San Fernando Valley, were different from the suburbs of the 1920s and the 1930s in that one other key factor: they didn't have a main street or a village center unless they happened to engulf an older community. They weren't places. They were simply street after street of single-family homes with an occasional school thrown in. But there were no true public realms, no civic centers, no main streets. Some people claim that the regional shopping malls that grew up on the outskirts of these suburbs were simply the new version of the public realm. I disagree. A public realm is about community, not simply about consumerism. A public realm is an outdoor space in the heart of a community with a variety of uses. It is infused with civic pride and the lofty dreams of the community. A regional mall by itself is not. Most post-World War II suburbs were bedroom communities. They were great places to raise families, offering good housing at a reasonable cost, but they weren't true places. This, of course, is the crux of our suburban dilemma today. How do you define a place? With that, Doug?